Welcome to the Creative Visionaries podcast. My name is Tori Barker, a digital marketing specialist, business owner, mom, and you guessed it, a creative visionary. This podcast is about inspiring business owners, building connections, sharing success stories, and motivating others. Join me on this journey as we tap into your true potential and unleash your inner visionary. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us again on the Creative Visionaries podcast. Today, I am so excited to introduce you to our guest, Julie Fry. Julie is the founder of Your Expert Guest, a podcast guest booking agency for service providers and impact-driven leaders that want to be heard by their ideal client without spending hours on social media. She and her team have booked over 2,000 interviews for their clients and can track hundreds of thousands of dollars of business back to being on a podcast as a guest to the top-ranked shows. Julie, welcome on the show.
Thank you, Tori. I'm really happy to be here.
So your intro sets the stage for some excellence in this conversation that we're going to be having because, as you know, the audience is podcasters. And so I think what you do is something that we all need to hear and what we all need to know. So tell us about what you do.
Absolutely. And it's a little ironic because many podcasters, you know, the medium, you're doing it every week or every 2 weeks and having conversations. But often podcasters forget that the best way to grow your show is by being a guest on other shows with similar audiences. And so our company helps female founders, service providers, thought leaders, and authors get more visible by being a podcast guest. So we've been doing this since early 2020 and just love connecting people, love making great connections.
Absolutely. So what makes your approach and the process so unique?
That's a great question. One of the things that we love about podcast guesting is that it's such a door opener. It opens doors to other visibility opportunities, speaking engagements, uh, you know, discovery calls, referrals, on and on and on. So our approach really is designed for building referrals for our clients. When we are working with a new client and we're looking at potential podcasts for them to guest on, we really look at, is the host an ideal client or are they a potential referral partner? You want to be strategic, and if you're hiring an agency to help you do this because you're spending money, you want to see a ROI. So we feel that that's really the best way to help them see an ROI in the 6 months or longer that we're working together.
Yeah, and what it sounds like to me is almost like matchmaking, right? So you get to know your clients and who they are, what they're looking for, what their goals are, and then seeking out the ideal alignment for the host to, pitch them to or, put in front of them. So talk a little bit more about that process of how you get to know the client who's going to be the guest to get them matched with the right host.
Yeah. So our process really starts with, first it starts with a discovery call. It's really important for us to have fit both that we feel really good about representing the client as well as for them to feel good about hiring us because they're an extension of our brand just as we are an extension of their brand. So discovery call is really an important first step. We don't always work with everybody that we have calls with, and they don't always work with us. So it's got to be a two-way fit. Then once that's established and they want to move forward, then we have a very in-depth strategy call. They're 90 minutes. And on that call, we really dig into who are you? What's your podcast about? Who are you trying to reach? What's your expertise? What's your unique point of view? Really anything and everything about that client to understand who they are, who they need to get in front of. Why do they even want to be a guest on podcasts? What's your end goal? It's important to establish that why and then work backwards from there so that we can understand how to build the strategy to support what they really want out of being a guest. So the strategy is a very important component of our work together.
Well, I think it's so interesting that you touched on the strategy piece of it because as a host, you go through that same process of why am I doing a podcast? What's my end goal? Who's my audience? But I think on the guesting side, people really discount that process. And it's such an integral and important part that I love that you're bringing light to, because it's just as strategic to be a guest as it is to be a host. And so taking the time to really identify the why, we should be identifying the why in everything that we do, right?
Right.
but but the why of guesting is so important. So I love that you bring that to light and have that conversation.
Yeah, it's so true because I think that in business, and I don't know why I feel like women business owners are more susceptible to the lure of, oh, I'm going to write a book. And I was having a conversation with somebody the other day about a book that she's writing. And when I asked her, why are you writing the book? She didn't really have a good answer for me. And I just thought, oh, I think that we fall victim to the like we go to a networking event and we meet somebody
Mhm.
who helps people write books and oh I should write a book and
Yeah.
but it's really important to ask yourself why am I doing this, especially if it's an investment of your time or money with
Yeah.
anything we do in our business.
So how did you know, because this is fairly new of a business, couple years, right? So
Three and a half, yeah.
3.5. Okay, so not too new, but still. So how did you know that there was a need for this and that you were the person to fulfill that need?
um, so I had a business for 7 years prior to this, and it was a women's networking organization. So a big part of what I did was matchmake. So we'd have
Mm,
a new member join, we'd have a call, I'd learn about her, I'd kind of learn who her ideal client was, what she needed in her business, and then I would be like, oh, I'll introduce you to this person and this person and this person. So it's funny because I never really realized that that was my thing or my superpower. I just like it came so easy to me. I thought it's easy for everybody. And then I thought back to my corporate career. I used to work for, if you have a dog, you probably know this item. It's called Chuck It. It's a tennis ball launcher for dogs, and they did a whole
yeah.
line of fetch toys. So I worked for them as a VP of sales for years. And when I'd go to trade events or have buyer meetings, like I was just always trying to help by connecting people. And so I didn't realize that at the time either. So it wasn't until I sold my networking agency business and was thinking about what I wanted to do next. And I was like, I love connecting people. It's so fun for me. It's rewarding even if I didn't get paid for it, but it would be great if I could do something, whether it's a corporate job or starting my own business that incorporates that.
Yeah.
And so when I started this business, it was the beginning of the pandemic, and many of my friends are speakers. And so their events were getting canceled.
Mm.
They were panicking, as a lot of small business owners were. Remember, it was very scary. And I thought, well, gosh, podcasts are something that are just continuing to grow. I've been listening to them since 2009, and I experienced the power of what being on the right podcast can do for your business. And I just thought, gosh, maybe I could help some of my friends by getting them on podcasts during this time. So that was really how it started. It was just a way to help people that were kind of freaking out about how they were going to keep their businesses alive.
I love that because I think so many great ideas come out of a dire need or a need, immediate need. And it's like, why didn't I think of this sooner? Right. And it's just, it
Yeah.
puts itself in front of you and it's like, okay, this is what you're supposed to do. And this is why you're doing it. So I love that you took that, inkling and that, intuition and just ran with it and look where we are today.
Yeah, yeah. I also believe that things happen for a reason. And, I wouldn't have started this probably if I hadn't have had my other business. And so it's kind of fun to see how life plays out.
So tell me one of your success stories or a fun story about a client that you put on a show or opportunities that maybe you had yourself as a guest.
Yeah. So gosh, there's a lot. A recent one is we just had a client. She runs a high caliber, part-time virtual assistant agency. So all of her virtual assistants are US based, but they're part-time. So, if you only need somebody 10 hours a week, you can hire somebody through her agency. And so she and I have known each other for years, but she hired us for a 6-month engagement to get her booked on podcasts. A lot of their business had come from independent financial professionals, and they were looking to branch outside of that. So we put together a strategy, started getting her on shows, and about halfway through, the 3 months in, she's like, we're seeing ROI on this. And then when we had our next call, she goes, Julie, I have to admit, we had a goal of just getting one client through this whole process. And then she ran through the number of clients and then leads in the pipeline. And she was like, we're at 4. So this is blown away what our expectations were as far as return on investment. And so then she signed for another 6 months with us.
Awesome.
We had another client that is a really great example of the doors opening. Example that I gave earlier is she is a hiring strategist and was going on some shows in the design, like for interior designers, industry, like home staging professionals. And one of the shows that we booked her on, he also has an in-person conference for the interior design community. And so after their interview, he said, hey, I'd really love for you to come and speak at my conference in Palm Springs. So she booked a speaking engagement from that and has been working with us off and on really for the last 3 years, because she'll work for 6 months and then take a few months off. And then she'll do it again for 6 months and then take a few months off. So we're on our 3rd engagement with her right now.
I love the opportunities that come from podcasting, and it's just so true to the amazingness of podcasting that there's so many different variables of opportunity, right? Like partnerships or speaking engagements or clients or new business
Friendship,
partnerships.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, all of that, all of that. I
yeah,
mean,
it's just
the way that I realized, like, wow, podcasts are really powerful is I was a guest on the BizTricks podcast by Natalie Ekdahl in the early days. So she started in January, I think 2014, and I think I was a guest in February. So she was really new, but we had a great interview and became friends, and then reconnected a couple years later. And then it's just things went on to progress to where she sponsored a conference that I had. She spoke at a conference that I had. Like, I joined her membership. Like, we went on and to do all of these collaborative things together. And it all started from this one podcast interview that she invited me to. We met each other at a conference, and we're still friends and stay in touch. And so it's really lovely. It's a perfect example of what podcasting can do for you long term and for your professional relationships long term.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a walking testament too, which is why I'm so passionate about podcasting. And we're preaching to the choir here with our listeners because we all believe in the power of podcasting. So yeah, it's just so fun to share these stories and really look back at the success that we've seen for ourselves and for other people and clients that we're working with.
For sure, 100%.
So, what do you think makes a good episode, right? When you're getting your clients as guests on shows, what do you think makes for a memorable interview?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that a lot of it comes down to chemistry. So that's another piece that is really important to us, is that there's some sort of energetic alignment between the host and the client. Because if somebody's up here and like super frantic energy, and if our client was like, hi Tori, how's it going? That would not be a good interview.
Right.
So you want to make sure that there's a match energetically. It helps if they have some reason to stay in touch afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Going back to the professional relationships, could they be referral partners for each other?
Right.
Do they just seem like they would like each other? That's enough. I mean, it's sort of hard to measure that. It's more of a art and less of a science. But that's why we listen to our episodes before we pitch people, because we want to know what the host is all about. We scour their webpage and understand, what is their podcast about? Who is their podcast for? What do they do for a business? Because all of those pieces go into having a good conversation.
Yeah.
Sometimes we even take it to like values alignment and making sure that if we have a client who's really progressive, they're not going on a show where the host, even if it's a business podcast, like pulls in their personal and political
Right.
beliefs, because that could be bad.
Absolutely. And what I love and what I hear when you're talking is the benefit of how you and your team help this client business owner, right? So we can sure anyone can find be looking for guesting opportunities, right? But there's something different about having an agency like you and a team behind you supporting you. Not only does that take that off your plate, but it almost sets you up for greater success, because then you and your team, it's like strength in numbers, if you will, right? So it's not just you or me looking for it. Like there's a whole team supporting you and taking this off your plate so that you could set yourself up for success, and you show up for this interview and you're just like blow it out of the water, right? So I hear that benefit when you're talking about everything that you do. So
Yeah. Well, and another benefit, and I'm a perfect example of this, because when we talked about me coming on the show, we have a team of account managers, and so they're the ones working directly with clients. And then Tori, as she should, has a client intake or a podcast guest intake form that you fill out. So she has everything she needs from you before the show. Our team is great about doing this for our clients, getting it to the host well in advance. I am not. So she emails me last night, like, hey, I don't have your guest form yet. And so I filled that out and got that to her. But we do that for our clients, so they don't have to worry about doing that at all.
I love it. It's so funny. It's like the cobbler's kids with no shoes, right?
Exactly.
So I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about what you see for your company and for podcast guesting in the future. If you have any insights or what your thoughts are for growth moving forward.
Yeah. So podcast guesting for 2024 and beyond, I think will continue to grow in awareness by podcasters as well as other just professionals, as a great way to be able to share your thought leadership and connect on a deeper level with a new audience, whether it's you want to grow your podcast or you're looking to just get more visibility around your business. It just has so many benefits that have legs, that are evergreen, that will continue to provide content for you to share on your social media channels or for your blog. The list just goes on and on as far as what it can do for you compared to other marketing activities that are 6 seconds of scrolling that you have to get your target audience's attention. So I think that podcast guesting will just continue to grow in popularity for podcasters and professionals. And then in terms of our business, we're a micro agency, we're less than 10 people. And we like staying on the smaller side so that we can really service our done for you clients. We also have a way to help people that either don't have the budget or desire to hire an agency to represent them. Maybe they have somebody in-house that can pitch them to podcasts, or they want to do it themselves. We have a custom pitch list that we build for those types of clients. And so it's a quick way for them to get a very targeted, specific list built just for them, with all the details and how to actually pitch the podcasters on the list. So we'll continue to offer that, and it's a great way to help those folks that want to do it themselves and not work with an agency, or if we're maxed out for clients, it works
Yeah.
really well.
That's so great. So, what are some actionable tips that you can give our listeners as we wrap up the interview?
That want to get booked as a podcast on
Yes.
shows or want to start exploring that,
Yeah.
I would first, go back to why do you want to guest on shows? Is it to grow your own show's visibility? Is it to connect with referral partners? So dialing in what the why is behind it, and then start thinking about what would be your interview topics. Like, what would you be pitching hosts? Looking at your top 3 downloaded episodes is a really great place to start if you're a podcaster, especially if those are solo episodes, because that's, talking about your wheelhouse and what your expertise is. So that's a great place to start. So looking at that and thinking about what you might have a unique point of view about. What's an oppositional viewpoint that you have to others in your industry? What's something that you could just talk about to death to somebody at a party as it relates to your business? And what problems are you solving for your clients? Those are all great places to start as far as your interview topics.
Awesome. And if somebody wants to take advantage of your amazing team and your company and your service, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah. Yeah. So you can find us at yourexpertguest.com. We also have a free gift for listeners, knowing that a lot of, depending on when this airs, but right now in November is a great time to be pitching shows for Q1 of the following year. So we have put together a list of 50 general entrepreneur podcasts that are always looking for guests. And so you can grab that at yourexpertguest.com/podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Definitely go
Yeah.
check that out. And I'm assuming social media is a good place to connect with you too, maybe on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. LinkedIn, Julie Fry.
Awesome.
There's probably
Well,
a lot of Julie Fries. So look at the one that has blue glasses. That's me. And so something about podcast guesting in
yes,
the
absolutely.
profile.
Well, thank you, Julie, so much. It's been so awesome talking to you. I mean, you and I could talk shop all day about podcasting and guesting and hosting and
For
marketing
sure.
podcasts, but I just appreciate you taking the time to share your expertise, and hopefully we've helped point our listeners in the right direction for next steps moving forward.
Totally. Thank you so much, Tori. It was great talking to you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Creative Visionaries podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe, leave us a review, or share with a friend. Also, make sure to visit us online at creativevisionariespodcast.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. And stay tuned for more episodes to come. And remember, it's time to tap into your true potential and unleash your inner visionary.